Brette, welcome to the Live Boldly podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today. I watched The Alpinist. I was just telling you this right before we jumped on. I watched the movie when I was flying home to see my dad and my uncle. It was a few weeks ago, and I'm sitting in the middle seat of the row, literally like binge eating food as I'm watching this and going, I need to have a conversation with her. I want to meet this girl because there's so much in this movie that I can relate to. And there's so much that I want to bring to our listeners. So thank you for being on this podcast episode with us.
Oh yeah, you know what? It was pretty spontaneous when I got your message, but I was happy to have a podcast with you. And I actually just got a message yesterday by somebody else who messaged me saying that they'd just seen it on the plane and the girl in front of him also was watching the movie. So it's kind of cool that people get to see it while traveling.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good. So good. And then of course I told my niece, I was like, you got to go watch this film. And then she watched it. And then I had messaged you and then you messaged me back. So here we are. So everybody go grab your journals because I want you to listen to the story. The story itself, there's a few angles that I want to touch on this with you. Number one, I'm a mom. So I'm 49 years old and I have 3 sons. And one of the things that I believe so deeply in is letting people follow their dreams and their aspirations. So huge, huge piece to that, right? So that's one of the things I really want to touch on. You as a partner with your boyfriend, right? And watching all that went and happened, right? And this unfolding of his journey. And then also where you are at today in your own grief journey and having experienced all of this. So those are the top 3 things that I really want to touch on within this episode. So you guys go get your journals because this is going to be a deep dive. Are you good with that? Can we dive in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds
So
good.
introduce yourself. I want you to tell us, who are you? Who are you? And tell us a little bit about your journey, your boyfriend, about what had happened with this film. Really dive into that part of it.
My name is Brette Harrington, and I originally grew up in Lake Tahoe, California, but I moved to British Columbia when I was 18. And I was always drawn to rock climbing, and that's what I wanted to do. That's where I wanted to spend my time. And I had already been rock climbing before, back when I was in high school. So when I moved to British Columbia, I was just looking for climbing partners all over the place online. And I would drive from Vancouver up to Squamish on the weekends. I was going to university. So on the weekends, I would drive up to Squamish and just climb with people that I would find either bouldering in the forest or I'd go to some sport crags. And I met one day a man who told me I needed to meet his roommate. And so I kept climbing with this guy. His name was Mark. But then Mark introduced me to Marc-André. And once Mark and I met, it was like we were inseparable. I was 20, he was 19. And we climbed together throughout the fall. So that was of 2012. He was the best climber I had ever met. He was so talented in every different style of climbing, so drawn to it. And he's also the first person who showed me that climbing isn't just a singular thing. It's totally multifaceted. Like he had a school project when he was a kid where his teacher asked him or asked all the students to give a presentation on different aspects of their life. So a lot of kids would have done like, oh, their home life and their friends and their sports. And Mark gave a presentation about ice climbing, alpinism, slab climbing, sport climbing, trad climbing, and all these different parts to climb, like these different dimensions of climbing that were all so different and also like so important to him. But he failed the project because the teacher couldn't see that they were all like different. She's just like, well, that's just climbing. That's one part of your life. But he's like, but they're all so many different parts to his life. So yeah, I mean, I think he was seeing out of the box and she was stuck within her own confinement.
Yeah.
And so he kind of shared that with me because at the time that I met him, I was really into just any adventure. And that's still who I am today. It's just like adventuring. And rock climbing encompasses all of that adventure, but then together we started alpine climbing and then soloing in the alpine. And he started showing me different parts to climbing, and then I started showing him like skiing and ski alpinism. So we just started morphing together all these different styles. And I guess in a way, we were living in this kind of blissful place. When I think back on that phase of my life, like it was just one big adventure, one that rolled into the next, and we were climbing as much as we possibly could. And it was really incredible. And then this film company started filming with us because we were doing some incredible ascents, and we got our first sponsors. Marc picked up his sponsor through Arc'teryx, and then a year later I joined with Arc'teryx also. So now we were getting supported to go on these adventures, and we started going further, ranging outside of British Columbia. So we went to Patagonia, and then we went to Baffin Island, and then I went back to Chile, and just like ranging into bigger, wilder terrain. And so the film company started filming with us, but they had this idea that they wanted to shoot soloing, and they wanted to make a documentary about free soloing. And as they started filming with us, they realized that Marc was actually such an incredible individual that their story was even bigger if they just focused on him instead of free soloing as a topic. So they changed the entire dimension of what they wanted to, or the entire storyline of what they wanted to create, and made it just about Marc-André. So for a couple years, we shot with them to make this film called The Alpinist. And right around the time that it was going to be finished up, 2018, they had one more shoot with us that they wanted to do in April. Marc went off to Alaska to climb this peak, and I went to Tasmania to climb with another partner. And during that time, Marc passed away because he and his partner were descending, and potentially, we believe, a cornice broke off from the top of the mountain and triggered an avalanche on top of them. So yeah, so Marc passed away, and that's kind of the premise of the film, is like talking about our lives together and what an incredible person he was, and how we had this chemistry, and then he just in a blink of an eye disappeared. It's a really powerful film. Even when I watch it, it hurts me to rewatch it. It's like, yeah, it's deep and sad, but beautiful. And I'm happy that they captured all of that. Yeah.
When you watch it and I'm going to go straight in as a mom, because like, I just want to hug you right now. Like I'm crying with you. I got to tell you, this film impacted me so much. We're working on a documentary, and right now as well, as I was telling you, and it's the thing that I have so much deep respect for him. Like, I'm really going to start to cry. I have so much deep respect for him for saying, I want to do it my way. Right?
Yeah.
Like I can't, and I remember this from the film of, I can't just have people filming me when I'm out there using, like, being with the mountains, because then I'm not there. It's almost like then you have this shadow that's over you, that's filming you, really not allowing you to just simply be yourself, one with that mountain when you're climbing it, whatever that is. Where does it hit you most when you're watching this film?
Seeing his personality and how much I loved him, and just thinking about how much heart and soul went into who we were together, I really felt like there was like Brette, and then there was Marc-André, but then there was us, and we were like this different entity, and it was something totally irreplaceable. And when he died, I lost that, and that is what hurts me.
Have you found?
And I don't really think about it that much anymore. It's been 5 years. So
Yeah.
I don't think about it because it's so painful, and I try not to peel back the layers all the time. But yeah, it's still there. It was incredibly special.
When you're out there climbing, do you feel him?
Yeah, depends on when. Like I climb every day. So only in the really special moments, like there have been certain climbs where I feel really proud of myself, and I know he would be proud of me. In those moments, I'm like, okay, I wish Marc-André could see that. And sometimes I think maybe he does. I don't know really what I believe in, but I feel like his soul somehow is still connected with mine in these really, really special moments. He might, like, wherever he is, feel it too. Yeah.
I'm a pretty spiritual person. I've become a spiritual person because I've been climbing so many damn mountains in my life, especially over the last 10 years. I mean, you don't really know my story,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you that now, I mean, I'm waypointing mountains in Southern California, and I'm very much the same as where it's just like any adventure that I can get my hands on, that's where I grow and learn more about me and find that space of understanding about myself a little bit more, right? And I've also grown into even more of a spiritual person because of it, and have had so many experiences where like would mind blow. I mean, my mom passed away in July, and I remember going down into the Grand Canyon leading a retreat of men and women that were going through their own life-changing transformations. And I had a little conversation with her, and I looked up into the sky, and I literally asked her, could you just tell me that you're okay? And this incredible rainbow formed around the sun, and the clouds parted into a heart right in the middle. And so, I would say that he's 100% right there with you with every climb that you do, and extremely proud.
He was so unique and so special. And what's kind of cool too about the film is that I knew how special Marc was, but so many people around me didn't, and people didn't really understand him because he wasn't very social. I mean, he was social around people that he was comfortable with, but he was really awkward actually in social settings. And so people didn't really get him, but I got him, and I got to see him when he was like truly himself. Like when he was climbing, he was like his soul came alive. And so for the film to come out and show like that's who he really was, I think people who even knew him in daily life didn't realize how truly beautiful he really was. Like even talking to my cousin, my cousin could only see him when we were in town and walking around, and then he was like, wow, I get it. I get why you loved him. Yeah.
So you're such a special woman, really, truly. Like how could you allow yourself to see him differently? And I mean this from a human space, because I do think that we so often are judgmental before we are accepting. What is it about you, and I feel this from you, like what is it about you that allows you to not be that judgmental space, and in turn is accepting of who the human is, unlike so many others in this world?
Well, so at the point when I met Marc, I had just moved back to Canada from Spain. I lived in Spain for a year. I didn't know really anybody in Canada when I moved back. And I guess I was just kind of lost, or I was young and also just like looking for what I was looking for, like the meaning in life. That was a big question for me. And I was also like super philosophical back then, like contemplating like society and wanting to be a part of society. Reading all these books about like, I can't remember his name, but like Into the Wild books.
Oh yeah.
And then what was McCandless, Christopher McCandless. Yeah. And so when I met Marc, at first I wasn't so sure about him because it always takes a while to get to know somebody, but I realized early on that he made me laugh, and that was good for me. And I needed to laugh more in life. And so that was like a conscious decision. I need to spend more time with this person because I'm laughing all the time. And so he made me feel good. And then also we shared the same passion. And it wasn't just like climbing. It was like the passion for adventure. Yeah. And that is, I guess, the answer.
Well, yeah, because I think that that's one of the things that so many people do miss in their life is laughter. And I'm the same way. I'm like, if you can make me laugh, oh my gosh, that's all I need more of in my life is laughter. Because I think sometimes
Yeah.
we get it squelched through life, you know? So
Mhm.
he passes away, and you're left now with this space of, you know, where, like, what is really about, like, what's there, right? Like, you've had this now, this incredible human taken from you. Can you walk us through, especially for those people that have gone through or are going through this grief journey, what that was like for you during that time?
So I'll take you back maybe just before he died. There was some really interesting conversations that he and I had that in a way led up to his death and like preparing me for it. So there was one instance we were together in Patagonia when our friend in the United States had passed away, and I was climbing a mountain way in the like deep in the Patagonian ice cap, and Mark had been in town and he found out about the passing of our friend, and he ran into the mountains to find me. And just like it was just kind of like this moment where he had never gone in to find me anywhere, but he like met me in this valley while I was hiking out. And as we were hiking out, he talked to me about the passing of Hayden, and we were both like so shocked and so sad. And he told me that if anything ever happened to him, he would want me to keep going and keep like living and like loving myself and living life to the fullest. Um, and I guess it's because he loved me and he loves like who I am um more than our connection. Like he loved my soul and wanted it to flourish. And so I didn't really like talking about these sort of things, but there was other conversations that were similar where he kind of had some ideas about life and death, and we talked about it a lot. So when he died, those conversations helped me just reflect on, and they seemed like foreshadowing in a way of like, why was he telling me these things back then? And I don't know, it almost seemed like he kind of felt like his life was going to be short or something. Um, so then, yeah, he passes away, and I was just like left in this void. And it was so painful. Oh my gosh, I couldn't handle the pain. I could not handle it. So the only thing I knew what to do was to go straight into the mountains.
Mm.
It wasn't that I was going to find him, but I was fleeing the pain. And also I didn't want time to pass. So I wanted winter to continue because he died in March, but it was still winter and we'd been living in winter. We had been together all winter, like ticking off all our projects, all the biggest ice lines and alpine lines. Like that was the most incredible winter together he and I had had. And so I just wanted winter to continue. And I was like trying to hold on to time, and I didn't want it to stop. So as winter started moving into spring, I started moving farther north and farther east to get more winter. And I just stayed in the mountains, and I was looking for like the most long alpine lines I could find. I just wanted to be there. Also, he had showed me so much about alpinism in the past 2 years prior that I felt like I had all these sources of knowledge that needed to be utilized. And if I didn't use them right away, I felt like they would just go to waste. Like all of his energy went to me. And so I just went alpine climbing for 2 years. And yeah, it was beautiful.
You just kept climbing. You kept taking his energy, and it just kept moving you through for those first few years afterwards. Isn't that interesting?
Climbing really helped me.
Well, so I want to dive into that really quick too, because the mountains there's people use the mountains for different reasons. They use their climbing for different reasons. How did he use his climbing? Like, what was it for him? And then what was it for you pre his death and then post his death?
Before he passed away, it was all just new and exciting. And we were like testing our own mental fortitude. Like, we did a lot of free soloing, a lot of it. And we free soloed together all the time. And it was like, in a way, I think free soloing taught me more about myself than any other aspect of life, because you really do have to go into your head, trust your abilities, trust yourself. It's all about your decision making, and know yourself. You need to know what you're capable of, what you're not capable of, where to back down, where to commit, what is safe, and your life is in your own hands. It's just an incredible thing to not play around with, but to learn about yourself with. So I wouldn't recommend free soloing to like anybody, but for me and for Mark, it was the right thing at the right time that was helping us build confidence in ourselves.
That those people that are listening understand, what is free soloing?
So free soloing is climbing without ropes,
Right.
rock climbing without ropes.
Just so everybody understands that. It's I don't do that. My kids would kill me. But then how did it change? How did climbing change for you post his death? Was it hard for you to get back out there?
Yeah, so like after he passed, the thing I wanted most was to do these really committing styles of climbing that took my mind away from the present, or away from the past, and away from memories, and away from emotion, and forced me into the present. Like in alpine climbing, you're like way up on these snowy faces, and you have to be completely aware of your surroundings and analyzing absolutely everything, and aware of your feet and your hand placements and your ice tools on the rock. Like, you cannot be distracted by anything. And that was the only thing that helped me bring my mind away from grief. So I stuck to that style. Also, I didn't feel stressed at all. That is something I sometimes forget about that time in my life, is that I had no stress. I was apathetic almost about all emotion. And I was just like, I would say selfish, that I was just doing things for myself. I wouldn't engage with anybody else that I didn't want to. I wasn't very friendly. I was just totally self-absorbed, but I was stress-free. It was an interesting time frame. And then I stuck to alpinism, and I didn't want to go back to the other styles of climbing that even Mark and I did together. Like, we did big wall climbing, a lot of rope climbing. So I felt like it would put too much pressure on me, whereas alpinism, there was no pressure. Either you climb the mountain, you don't, you bail, you succeed. There was like, it just felt free. Whereas with like big wall climbing, you have an objective, and if you put in 10 days of work and you fail, that weighs on you. So I didn't engage with that at all for a couple years. And slowly, as I've like moved through the phases of grief, I've started circulating through the other styles of climbing. And now I'm primarily focused on rock climbing. That's like the stage that I'm at right now. So yeah, it's always changing for me.
Isn't that interesting? So he passed away in what year was this?
2018.
2018, and now it's 2023, and you can literally see the progression of your own healing through the progression of the way that you've actually been taking on climbing again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna relate this to, and I can relate this to my own life as well, and metaphorically, or let's like look at our stories, right, and see if our stories mirror each other. But I know for me, so 2013 was when I went through some major trauma, and then I started adventuring, and I would go deeper into my adventures and deeper into my adventures. And I remember the first time I did an overnight backpacking trip, and it was 2017. That was my very first overnight backpacking trip, where it was for 2 nights. And then all of a sudden, and I was like hooked. I'm like, this, I found myself on top of El Capitan. You get it, right? Like I was like, holy shit, I'm on top of El Cap. How did I get here? Right. And then all of a sudden, then 2018, I'm on the High Sierra Trail, and one thing led to the other. 2020, I'm 22 days on the John Muir Trail. And now we're section hiking the Sierra High Route, which is waypointing through the Sierra Nevada mountains. And you keep, as I'm looking at this story, what you're sharing, and the story of also what I've been through as adventures, it's adventuring in life, but then it's also like going out into the mountains and adventuring in life, but it's also allowing your journey, right? Your healing journey, your grief journey, trauma journey, whatever it is, to be reflected in the work that you are literally in as well, which for you is climbing, right? Different ways. How freaking cool is that?
It's really cool. And it also shows how important these things are to us as people. Like, other people just see climbing as some activity or a hobby, but for me, it's way more than that. And obviously, like, hiking and backpacking and just being in the mountains is the same for you.
Oh, huge. I don't know what
it's so important. Yeah.
Well, and so this is where I just like, can I mom you for a second? Do you mind? Because how old are you?
I'm 31.
You're 31. Okay. So I'm 49. So technically I could mom you. If you don't mind, because I actually have a 31-year-old, by the way. So here's what's really interesting is that you started this conversation with like not pulling back the layers, right? Where you were like, I don't really pull back the layers. That's, if I'm not mistaken, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna mom you for a second and just tell you, you are pulling back the layers. As I'm conversing with you on this is pulling back the layers, and it's finding whatever those layers are. It's finding this new version of yourself through this. It's a trauma journey that you've been on, having lost the love of your life. And I also would like to believe that he's also here with you. Like, I believe that we all meet for a reason. And even having this conversation and me watching this film on the plane, there was a reason for it. There was a reason that I went through however many packs of food I did on that Delta flight, as I'm sitting there watching it going, I gotta meet this girl, because like there's something here. I do believe that we all have these intersecting planes. And I also do believe that there are people above us that make it happen, that they help make it happen. It's we as humans, we either listen and we say, okay, yes, I'm going to reach out to her. Hopefully she reaches back, or we say, ugh, she'd never reach back out to me. So why bother? Like, right. There's a reason for it. And so with that, I would also like to just share what I'm seeing here is you pulling back the layers and allowing yourself to heal through this journey in the way that works for you. I think so often we have people that tell us how to do it, and that's where we get screwed up, because we all are humans and we all have our own way, and this is the way that's working for you.
I totally agree. And it's nice. People want to help you, and people want to like tell you what works for them.
Right.
But it doesn't work for everyone, and it only works for them. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Like, some direction is nice if somebody needs it or wants it. But look, for me, and when Mark passed away, I couldn't take direction. I just had to follow myself. Yeah.
And that right there needs to be written down by every single person that's listening to this, because that's such a beautiful, true north, literally. And it sounds to me like you kept going north. Like you were like, no, I just want to keep, I did. Winter. I want to stay winter. I want to stay winter. I want to stay connected with him in the falling snow. And that's such a beautiful journey. That's such a beautiful journey. I love it. I absolutely love it. So let's dive into, you've talked to his mom, obviously, right? And I don't want to I would rather have her talk about the journey of herself with being a mom. That said, how was it for him that you know of as a young man? How was it for him to be supported? And this is for parents everywhere needing to support their kids' journey, right? Whatever their passion and their purpose is. How was it for him to have a mom that was like, no, because in the film, she talks about this. She homeschooled him. She was like, nope, I don't like how this is working. It's very open in the film about her supporting his love for adventure. And so can you share a little bit about what that was like as you saw, as the girlfriend, him having that support from that mom in that way?
So Mark adored his mom. He adored her. They were best friends. I think Mark's mom was his, like, probably for sure, she and me, we were his two closest people. And I think it's because Michelle just always wanted him to fulfill himself. She also has two other children, and she is the same with them. Like, she saw early on that they're all very unique and that they're all going to need something different. Like Mark's older sister, Bridget Ann, was always super book smart and so social and wanted, like, always had her friends around. And so Michelle, obviously Bridget's a little bit easier to support, but it wasn't fair that Mark went out to boarding school or to be homeschooled. So she pulled Bridget out too for 2 years and realized that Bridget needs to go back to school because she wants to be with her friends. So Bridget went back to school. And then, like, Mark has a younger brother, Elijah, who also is on his own path. He's a super creative mind, like searching for music, and I think he's doing his own podcast right now. So yeah, she doesn't want them to be fit into certain categories. Like, she wants everyone to find their own path.
Yeah. And I think that that's such an important part as a mom or a parent, is to be able to allow your kids to really thrive in the gift that they have, and to be able to literally release yourself from the expectations of what society or you feel like they should be, because ultimately we are our own individual human beings, which is such a beautiful testament to her parenting.
I remember her saying, like, when Mark was 17 years old, he asked her what, like, if he could go climbing or go up to Squamish, and she's like, you should just move there. If you want to pursue this rock climbing thing, just go for it. And so he did, and she went up to Squamish with him and helped him find roommates, helped him find housing, and then just supported him emotionally, like, to follow his passion. He was completely broke. And so, like, he had to find little odd jobs here and there. He did landscaping, and he worked at I want to say, like, one of the fast food restaurants for a while in Squamish. He was just trying to make ends meet. But Michelle just wanted him to be in the community that would support his goals or his dreams.
Wow. How has his passing influenced the woman that you are becoming today?
I don't really know. I definitely understand loss a lot more, and I understand love. And I didn't before realize how deep love could go. But I don't really know the answer to that question.
When they were working on this film, and I know that it was a shock to everyone that he had passed away, and they still finished it, what was that like for you?
I wanted them to finish it because I wanted the world to see how special Mark was. I'm glad that they finished it. They took an extra couple of years to refine the storyline. And people always ask me, like, that question of, like, would you have preferred it to just be, like, for them to dropped it and it to be quiet? But I don't think so, because now the world can see what a beautiful person he was. And I think he deserves that recognition. He was so unique. Yeah, I think it's wonderful that it actually became realized. I just wish that he could have seen it himself.
You know, there's some notes that I took when I was when I was sitting there, some notes. Let's just say I took a whole I had I was taking note after note after note about the film. And I know that there was so many things that stuck to me. And one was why you climb, right? And that one of the things that I got from it was, I climb every moment. I climb so I can live every moment of my life, right? And I climb so that in such a concentrated situation, it's almost like climbing becomes meditation for you, right?
Mhm.
And there's
Yeah.
in life, you have to keep doing in what you believe. You have to keep asking yourself, do you really want this from my heart? What is it for? What's the meaning behind it? What's your why? And also just inspiring, like how people are out there to inspire the world. And, you know, if you can inspire one or two people, that's great. And ultimately,
Mhm.
right, it's also to inspire, to keep that inspiration going and moving into the world. Um, you have to be willing to try. These are all the notes that I was taking. You have to be willing to try. You also have to be willing to fail. Don't be afraid to dream big in whatever that dream is that you have. Um, the most important thing that I also want to come back to as we close this is one of the things that I wrote was it's all in the way in which you climb the mountain that matters. And that means no matter what it is, no matter what mountain it is, whatever mountain it is in your life, if we're talking about the mountain of grief, the mountain of pain, the mountain of sadness, the mountain of exploration, the real mountain, right? It's all in how you choose to climb that mountain. And it's a choice. It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about
I
those,
love that.
right?
Well, the last one is so relevant to climbers specifically in like a more superficial way, because it is all about the style in which you climb it. Like if you free climbed it or if you used a point of aid, and within the climbing community, it gets down to the nitty gritty. Like, well, how many times did you pull on a rope, or how many times did you fall? And so it is like the climbing is judged based on style. But then when you think about it in the greater picture, it's like, well, what journey did you take yourself on, and what did it mean to you, and how did you cheat your way? Did you feel like you did your best? Did you follow your creativity? Was it your own vision that led you there? And did you figure out how to move your body in the right ways? Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
It's such a reflection, I think, of the journey that we are all on, right? Like, and I know, I mean, my own trauma journey of grief and PTSD and all of it. I mean, I can only imagine the amount of PTSD that you encountered during that journey, those first few years, and also allowed yourself to take your own true north and climb the mountain as you needed it to, whatever that way looked. And also how that journey has transformed in the way that you have climbed over the years. I've had the same thing, different yet same. And it's pretty remarkable. You're a remarkable young woman, like such a
Oh,
remarkable.
thank you.
You're welcome. You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Oh my gosh. So
I have an interesting story that you might
I will
enjoy.
love it. I love
So in the
stories.
movie, okay. Okay, so in the movie, Mark climbed Torre Egger. He did the first winter solo ascent. Do you remember that one? It's the one in Patagonia, the spire with the ice at the top.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Torre Egger. So he did that it was their winter season, so September, October of 2016. And while he was down there, he almost didn't go, but he did end up going in the end. And so we were in communication online. And while he was down there, he was sending me all these messages about this other line just to the left of it that had never been climbed. And it looked like a possible route that he and I should go try in a later season. And I got all excited because I love doing big adventurous things. And so he was sending me photos, and then he came back from that trip, and um, a couple years went by and we didn't make it there because he had this other goal during the season that we could have gone down there. And so it was just it was overlapping. So we couldn't get there. And so when he passed away, I still wanted to go do that climb. And so I went with a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, and we get to the base. And the only information I have about it, it was Mark's vision from like 2 years, 3 years previous now. And Mark told me that it looked pretty scary, like really run out. And so I was gonna have to like dig really deep, and I didn't know what to expect or how it was gonna go. And so me and my friend Quentin were there, and I was like, collected all of the notes that Marc had sent me about the line, and then we did it. We climbed the route, but we only made it halfway because halfway up the mountain, my mountain boots broke away from the leash and fell a couple hundred meters to the glacier and fell into a crevasse. And so we couldn't summit. And so we rappelled, but that was the last window of the season. And so we returned the next year and we climbed the lower half that we had already established, and we intercepted with the route that Marc had climbed in the movie. Titanic is what it's called. And as we were up there, I found two of his anchors that he had built. And I knew that they were his because of the way he tied his knots. And the cordelette that he used, and the fact that they were single piton. It was just like his perfect anchor. And so I came upon his first one and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. This is like Marc right here.
Right.
And it was like a moment that just struck me, and I felt like he was right there. Like the time hadn't passed. It was like he had done this and no one had been there since he was there. And now I am there on this line that he had envisioned. And so then we climb up higher and we come upon one more. And I realized that that's the anchor. On his first attempt at that line, he didn't make it to the summit. The storm blew in and he rappelled. And I came to the anchor that he built to start the rappels. So I was at the spot where he bivvied. And I remember all the conversations and from him, like saying that he was up there in the storm and on this tiny, tiny ledge on a little like walkway. And that's exactly where it was. It was just like so mind blowing to be in that position after all those years and to have like fulfilled this vision that he had. And we summited, and we ended up naming our route Marc-André's Vision. However, the descent was also like super exciting because Marc was the one who had mapped out the descent route, and he was the one that did it. And his photographer, who was up there shooting for the movie, was the only other person that knew how to get down. So I contacted Austin. His name is Austin Sidak, and I'm like, hey, Austin, where did you guys rappel? And Austin was like, Marc led us down this insane rappel route. I don't even know how to describe it to you. And so I was the only one, and out of my team, I had another friend of ours joined us. So now I'm at the summit and I'm like following Marc's crazy descent route down this space at night, and it's a 900-meter mountain. And so we like just start working our way down, and I had to build my own anchors, but it was like crazy following Marc's stream from years past. And like, yeah, it was an incredible line. I like that story.
See, I'm telling you, he's here.
Yeah.
I know. What message would you believe that he would want to give to everybody? A lasting legacy message. And then what is your message?
I think Marc's would be disregarding what everybody else's path, and searching what makes you passionate, finding your soul passion and going for it. I think that is what he would think. I don't know though, but I think maybe that's what I would think. Yeah, I would think I would say that too, but I don't know. Yeah, I think ours would be probably the same there, following your dreams.
I would have to agree with that. Well, thank you for being here, because you've been an absolute pleasure, and this has been so wonderful to meet you. Where can people find you? And then also tell us about your retreats.
So Instagram is probably my most used form of social media, but I also have Facebook, and then email. And my business is called ascentclimbingtrips.com. And so you can go to my website, or email is ascentclimbingtrips@gmail.com. And my business that we actually just started this year, and we just finished our first trip, and it was amazing, is like beautiful climbing trips, but they're not really retreats. It's more like a crafted trip where I've like spent months and months in these places and have found all of the most beautiful crags and the most like beautiful hotels and intricate restaurants that bring out the culture of the place. I wanted it to be like classy and like, but also like really fun and inviting. And so I take small groups. There's like 9 people about per trip, and we have 3 guides, so we can divide if we want. And it's open to people who are completely new to climbing to people who are advanced in climbing. So it doesn't really matter. And then we go on this dream climbing trip to these places, like the one in Sardinia. We just did this beautiful multi-pitch over the water. It was 3 pitches over like teal blue water. And then we took a boat up the coast and we climbed over the water on the coast. This style it's called deep water soloing, but it's really just like climbing as high as you want and then jumping into the water. It's fun. It's really fun. So we took,
yeah. I was like, oh my God, what is this?
You should do that. I bet you'd like it.
I'm pretty sure I would. Can I paddle? Because I like to paddle with whales and dolphins. So that's my other jam. So
yeah, everyone who had tried, it was everyone's first time trying it. And some people were absolutely terrified of it at the start. And now they're all like, we want to do this. One guy left the trip and he was heading to Italy and he's like, I'm going to find a place to do this. So yeah, so we deep water soloed one day and then cragged, and like I guess each day was designed around a different style of climbing and had a different advantage. And yeah, so that's cool. Kind of what we do. And
so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I lead retreats in the Grand Canyon, so maybe I'll get you down there and we can pull back some more layers.
Which is very cool. Is it rafting or hiking?
No. We do. So I do coaching. It's interesting that you're doing this work outside of your own journey, right? And the things that you've accomplished and worked through. And for me, I lead people on retreats in the Grand Canyon where we hike down. We spend 2 or 3 nights at the bottom in the cabin at Phantom Ranch, and we do a lot. I take people to the same thing. I take people to all the places that have been extremely healing and spiritual, where I've worked through a lot of my own grief work, trauma work, but also just personal development, finding out more about myself, right? Like that adventuring piece. And we do coaching prior to and post. And so it's a whole journey. It's like a 3-month journey into self with 5 or 6 days of a deep intensive retreat. That is super fun. And I just got off mine last week and it was awesome. Well, thank you for being here. This conversation will continue and at another time, I'm sure. And if there's anything that I can do for you or any of your listeners that are your people as well, please, reach out, and I'm here for you too. So thank you for
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a nice conversation with you.
So much fun.